Hey Steve, it's Dennis. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's Dennis.
We can hear you, but the first time your voice was garbled.
Oh, hold on. I gotta change them. You okay? How's that?
Much better.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
No, close my door. No. Boy. You don't see me up here. I'm up here.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Harlan. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Morning, Harlan.
Good morning.
How's my volume?
It's good.
Good. That's nice. Thank Chris for that little
Harlan, can you hear me?
I can.
I can hear you, Steve.
I can,
I
Steve.
just
I'm not
No,
able to hear anybody.
You can't hear anybody? I can hear you, yes. All right,
yeah,
good.
we
Anne Marie, I may ask you to just give the numbers on the survey, if you don't mind. I can't hear you, but I'll call on you if you're willing. Okay? Okay.
Steve, can you hear me, Steve? You're still on mute. Still on mute, Steve. Still muted. And I still got you on mute on my computer, Steve. Do you have him on mute, Harlan?
Sorry.
Do you have Steve on mute?
He is on mute at the moment. Now he's not.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, anyway, you got two computers going, Steve.
Yeah, I just took care of it.
Yeah, you got a lot of echo there, Steve.
Yeah, for some reason or other, my audio is.
No, may it just be muted, Harlan. I'm with. I don't see Adam. I do not see Brad. Neither
Adam.
one. I don't see either one of the two board members now.
Oh, Adam is here, so we have a quorum, but let's wait for one more minute as we usually do.
Yes, sir.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
I'm happy to today.
I'll send a message to Brad here. Okay. So Brad, can you hear us then? I guess you're on the phone. He says he's on the phone line. I don't know what that means. Brad, can you hear? Please respond. So we can't hear him.
He might be on a different phone line, maybe, Harlan, if you can't hear him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me cut him or copy and paste the Zoom link for him, and I'll text it to him, see if that works better.
Okay.
I resent
Hi, Harlan, it's
the.
Brad.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
All right, let's get started. First of all, thanks everyone for joining in today. And our apologies for the confusion on the first notice that went out. I'm sure that did confuse some people, but hopefully the second notice got out in enough time so that people are able to attend. Obviously, we are recording this, right, Steve? Yeah, I can't hear you. You're on mute, but yeah, I think we're recording this so that someone who is unable to attend will be able to listen. So thank you all for attending today. Let's have Dennis, do you have proof of notice of this meeting, please?
Yes, there was proof of notice and posted along the mailboxes at the club.
Okay. Thank you. Let's have a board roll call alphabetically. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky here.
Brad Hanson here.
Steve Dalton here.
Harlan Steuben here. We have a quorum. Now let's go next into the approval of the minutes for the board meeting, April 17th. So just a little bit of we got some echo going on here, but just a little bit of a clarity. Anne Marie, thank you. You took notes last meeting, and that unedited version was sent out. And revised edited version was then sent out afterwards. Are there any corrections or additions to the revised edited version that was sent out from the board? Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Then I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Brad Hanson, second.
All those in favor, alphabetically first, Adam,
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Steuben, the minutes, the edited version of the minutes that were sent out are approved. You'll notice that there were some attachments that were sent out that will not be read. These are really for informational reasons. If people have any questions or concerns, we would welcome you to send us an email so that we can thoughtfully respond to your questions. There's so much going on all of the time, and really, I got to tell you, I spend probably the equivalent of a whole day putting together all of this information to you. I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting. My apologies for that, but this information is, to the best of my ability, what is kind of new information since the last meeting. I would like to go into the reports. I will want to comment that we will speak about an attachment that did go out on the PWC bike program, and we'll talk about that in further down the line as we talk about that motion. So I'm not going to review it now. So in my report, I want to ask Anne Marie to give us an update or the final on the survey of the pool house 2 versus 1 story revote. Anne Marie, please.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of the board, thank the 182 owners who participated in the survey. That's a great high 92 percentile participation, and it's awesome that everyone is passionate about sharing their preference. The outcome of the survey was 61% wanted a revote and 39% did not. However, if the 70 people who did not want a revote voted to continue to have a 2-story pool house, then the 2-story pool house would be the result of an official vote. So there is no need to do a revote.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And yeah, I want to echo as well. This is really awesome that we're getting such participation, 92%, and only 15 owners didn't respond. And I'm just really pleased about that. And obviously, this has been a high point of frustration as well as controversy within the community. And I'm so happy that the community has given us some further guidance on what to do with this issue. Um, you know, we're the first to admit, quite frankly, that the bylaws are need to be changed, but we're living by the bylaws that have been there for as long as any of us can remember. So the bylaws, as such, with the number of people who do not want a revote, they're satisfied with the 2-story. Having a revote will not change the outcome of a 2 versus a 1-story, period. So that issue is over with. We are not going to revisit that during my tenure as we're moving forward. I want to mention something about ClickPay. Now, as you all remember, when we were with FSR, we had a program called ClickPay where you could go onto our website and you could pay your quarterlies as well as your any additional assessments, etc. And we have been working on this issue. It's not without lots of effort. And I want to give my kudos to Anne Marie, who's been really my right hand support in all of this, as she has kind of field tested and given feedback, etc. And Steve Russo, who you recognize the last name, but Steve is not an owner of the BBC, but he runs a security and internet. He's really an expert in this whole kind of process. And Steve has been working diligently with us to try to develop this ClickPay. I wish I could say that we are ready for it, but we still have some work to yet need to be done. So in the meantime, we'll continue on with the process that we have where you pay your bills directly to the accountant, etc. I know there's been some issue about filling the vacated director position. I see that Becky Farley is online. Becky, we certainly miss your effort and sorry that you needed to resign for personal reasons, but we're so appreciative of everything that you've done. I have reached out to a number of people and I believe we have an excellent candidate. However, the pool house, 2 versus 1 story and its location have been some of the most controversial issues we face, and asking someone to step in before those decisions are finalized wouldn't really be fair to that person. So we're going to wait until there's resolution of these 2 issues. We have one now that's resolved. We have the second one that we'll talk about in a few minutes. And when those are resolved, then we'll address the issue of the vacancy. My conversation with Kyla would suggest that we're not obligated in a particular time frame, yet it's optimal for us as an organization to have someone fill that position. So it will happen sooner than later, but that's the reason for the temporary delay. We also will have a vote on the common room bathrooms in A, B, C, D, and E. As you remember, we had a survey that was done on this, and overwhelming number of people were supportive of having ADA bathrooms in those one side standard and one side ADA in those in those 5 buildings. However, that still requires a material alteration vote. That is under preparation and will follow the final decision on the pool house location. And then one last reminder, we did have a violation and it turned out we caught it, or I'll say our next door neighbor caught it. The president of Seascape sent me an email and said, you got somebody who's got a light on in their lanai. And fortunately, we were able to get in touch with that unit owner or before it was picked up by the city. So just remember, we're still in turtle season and hurricane season. Beware of, make sure your evening lights are off on your lanai, although we do have turtle friendly lights that can be you can pick up from the office. I'm pretty sure we have some left for your lanai, but your other openings to your kitchen window or your sliders have to be closed off so that there's no white light that's showing outside of your unit. And remember that although we're not in hurricane season yet, officially we are, but I mean that the heat of it will come later on. When you're leaving for more than a few days, be sure to remove anything that could be a hazard. Remove anything from your lanai that could potentially be a hazard. So that's the gist of my presidential report. I'd like to turn it over now to Steve. He's going to talk about the insurance proposals, and I'm going to ask him to talk about the fiscal year, the Stromer audit for fiscal year 23 and our pending wind insurance claim. Steve, you're up next.
Thanks, Harlan. Got a lot to cover. Let me start by having a little bit of a summary on the financials. So the ending April 30th, so really technically May 1st financial report, we're in good shape in operating. We're sitting on approximately $700,000, which is a healthy balance. We've been able to do a lot of cost cutting measures, and a lot of our recurring costs through the damage and the restoration have not been high. So we've been well under budget on operating. So we're sitting again on about a $700,000 balance in operating, and approximately 3.3 between our reserve account and our hurricane account. So sum in total of about $4 million in cash that we're sitting on, 3.3 obviously for restoration and hurricane that we have remaining. So that's the good news. The rest of this is essentially not great news. But I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone. So first of all, let's deal with insurance costs. As you may or may not know, and I'm going to try and not get too deep down into numbers here because everybody will glaze over except for a few. But suffice it to say, we have approximately a $2 million annual budget. Okay. That's made up of 400 and some thousand, about 450,000 for our reserve budget, and about a 1.5 or 1.6 million for our operating budget. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, that means to each one of you about $10,000 per year that you give to us that we spend between reserve and operating. Okay. So that's where your money goes, about a $2 million budget. Unfortunately, going back to 22, which I became treasurer in July of 22, our total insurance cost was $540,000. This year, that same cost, including interest, is going to be 1.2 million, or an increase of almost $700,000 in insurance costs only on our operating budget. Okay, so it's obviously a huge increase. Since I've been treasurer, we didn't increase the fees in 22. I didn't increase them again in 23, but as just a heads up, you can't increase your budget and spend 61% of your money on insurance and not anticipate an increase in the quarterlies. So piece number one is, just to give everybody a fair warning, I don't see that we have any choice but to increase our quarterlies because of the ridiculous costs we're spending for insurance right now. We're doing everything we can. For example, when we brought the whole complex up to standards for a Miami-Dade missile hurricane compliance, that helped, okay? But right now, we're crossways with our wind coverage, which is far and away the most expensive component. It was about 200,000 when I started, and this year it's 860. So we've seen a quadrupling of that cost. So, and there's nothing we can do about that. Now that we've gotten Miami-Dade hurricane compliant, but moving towards negotiating down those rates, we were hopeful of getting to Citizens, which is the state-run insurance conglomerate, and we were not able to do that. So we just weren't sufficiently rebuilt, and Citizens turned us down. So we had to again go into the private insurance market. That's private equity firms. They are strictly for profit. We've had to fight them to get claims paid, and we're still in the midst of that fight. We've hired attorneys, as everybody knows. Flood, which is FEMA, which is your tax dollars, paid off extremely well and very quickly, and we were going back to them with a supplement. Wind hasn't paid us a single dime yet, and of course, they are far and away the most expensive component, but still yet, we're battling that. We're now moving towards, we've hired another attorney to go along with our public adjusters. So we're fighting through that. In summary, we've got a $2 million budget and 61% of it is going out the door. And then actually, if you think about it, our budget is 1.5 on operating, and 1.2 of that goes out the door in operating insurance costs. So we can't sustain that. So upcoming in September, probably looking at a quarterly increase, and I'll get the numbers together and work with Harlan to figure that out. Secondly, the other piece of Mr. Happy today is overall potential for an assessment, okay? And I think this has become inevitable, but I want to make sure that everybody understands this, because I know nobody's happy about that. Nobody wants to hear that we're going to have to do an assessment. And I don't think it's going to be avoidable, and I really want everybody to understand this. Right now, custom paint and restoration, if you've been to the BBC, you'll notice you can't miss the fact that we've got 3 7-story cranes sitting in the middle of our courtyard that are doing major concrete restoration and building restoration to make sure that our buildings are safe. And that was damage that was incurred, and technically costs that were incurred as a liability before the hurricane, okay? This was as a result, I always call it the Surfside issue. After Surfside collapsed, everybody in South Florida who had a condo association said, hey, we need to get an engineering study. The state mandated it. We had engineers come in, and predictably our building was in good shape, but it still has some issues. And you're looking at a very significant amount of cost. And we had already passed an assessment to pay for the restoration of our building to make sure that our concrete, our underlying support is all supported and is up to snuff. And for those of you look along C building, for example, you know, even at like level 4, there was a huge 5 or 6 foot fissure that water was running straight into the building and going into unit owners on the 3rd floor of C building. So clearly these are very significant costs. Between that, the fact that the board, and I think absolutely correctly so, decided to put up a 42-inch scour wall to protect us from tidal surge, which we know is going to happen again. It's an inevitability. We're putting up that 42-inch wall that was not covered by insurance. And additionally, because of the devastating damage that was done to our elevator units, or excuse me, our elevator power rooms and our electrical power rooms, which we really didn't have a choice to move, we decided to invest $16,000 per opening in these submarine doors that we think will cover our building up to a surge of 8 feet. So if we get a 4-foot surge and fill the courtyard with 4 feet, we think that the damage will be absolutely minimal. And we have some assurances. I'm not sure exactly what the details are, but we have some assurances. So in summary, this assessment that is we're getting the numbers together now, it'll be probably a next month thing, is going to be for, and please understand this, for concrete restoration, which we'd already passed prior to the hurricane, for the scour wall out front, and for the submarine doors, all elements that were either necessary reconstruction or preemptive protection spending. But we would anticipate it's going to be, you know, a significant expenditure. $2 million is what we're spending with custom paint and restoration. And that was sort of his estimate. That's a lot of money. That's obviously a significant amount of outlay per unit owner. So bottom line here was the assessment standpoint. I don't think that we can avoid that. Again, we'd already passed that. We were going to have to incur those costs because of the restoration that you see ongoing. We have to keep our buildings up to date. And then the optional spending, which is the 42-inch scour wall running adjacent. Actually, we connect to the wall that Seascape is building, and it runs all the way across to protect our building, and runs all the way to the tennis courts that will protect the wave surge, and we'll have riprap out in front of that, and the submarine doors that we think will protect all of our vital interest electrical rooms, so we don't have to replace all of our electrical equipment and our elevator equipment, all the electronics and all that. That's been the major part of getting everybody back into their units and why it's taken so long. We really, as a board, felt like, and I think universal agreement among people I've spoken with, to try and preempt that. So in summary, likely an increase in the fees coming up in September, inevitable, because we're now spending well over 61% of our total budget on insurance costs. Those costs have gone up fourfold, and I think maybe they could potentially go down next July when we get to Citizens, but we've still got a cash flow in the meantime. We're in good shape right now financially. We're earning interest. I think we'd earned $375,000 of interest because I've moved the money around and kept it in interest-bearing accounts. But you know, we've got needs, and I don't think anybody's going to be surprised that we are going to get through this thing unscathed. I know we've already done one assessment, but really the upcoming assessment is going to be for damage that was already incurred, and work that needed to be done prior to Hurricane Ian. So Harlan, I know that probably you'd like to add some to that, but that's sort of an overview of where we're at financially. Sorry for a lot of numbers and length, but we've got some significant upcoming issues.
Hey, Steve, thank you very much. And we will talk more about the possible assessment here a little later on in the conversation. There was a question, Steve, about flood insurance, and we did submit a secondary claim to flood. Can you just give us an update on that?
We do. So one thing is that, as I always refer to it, our flood coverage has paid off very well, and it's FEMA. It's written through Wright Flood. Colonial Claims handles our claims, and I'm in contact with Daniel long since this happened, probably never go more than a week. So we have a very significant supplemental claim that we have submitted. And we submitted a lot of the first floor owners supplemental claims that were not covered when we first submitted the damage. And that was from Daniel Long coming out and doing that. So we have a very significant supplemental claim that went in with the first floor owner's claim. And the bottom line is that was submitted several months ago. I'm going to call Right Flood and push again. We are sort of at their mercy about when they're going to pay that, but we should get a slug of cash coming back from Right Flood. And at that point, all the claims of the first floor owners will be reimbursed. And I think there were some supplementals on second floor. So again, we're just, we just have to wait for Right Flood to pay that claim, and we're at their mercy.
Steve, is there still an opportunity? This is another question. Was there still an opportunity for some owners who believe that they were damaged from the flood insurance, not wind, to submit some secondary claims?
Yeah, absolutely. So know this, that our claims period is open until we have finalized the claim with Right Flood. So, we're continually throwing in. One thing you need to know is that according to Daniel Long, who works for Colonial Claims, he is our interface between us and Right Flood. And they don't like to handle, in fact, it's all but impossible to submit one smaller claim. And I know it's not smaller to somebody, a unit owner that's got $6,000 due, but to Right Flood, we submitted $10.5 million worth of claims. We're going to submit we've submitted a significant amount more. At the end of the day, they don't want to see a $3,000 or $4,000 small claim come through. We have to, unfortunately, batch those in to a larger claim because it's the only way we can get their attention and get them to settle claims. So no, it is not too late until that last dollar has been dispensed and they've marked the claim final. Absolutely, people can submit under flood coverage if you've got damage, and I'll send that through. You just need to send details, pictures, as much as you can to me, and I'll push it on to Daniel Long and he'll push it into Right Flood. Now would be a very good time to do that.
And you'll batch them, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Steve, one last question. Have you had any feedback from Stromer regarding the audit for fiscal year 23?
No, it took them so long to do the prior, and candidly, that's just been a follow-up item. I haven't had a chance to talk to them. They're percolating on it, and we've provided information, and they seem to run at their own pace. The good news is we don't pay them until they finish. So haven't heard a peep from them. I'll send them a follow-up email just to ask where they're at in the process.
Steve, thank you very much. Thanks for the report, and thanks for everything you're doing continually.
Welcome.
I'm not sure that we could do it without you, buddy. A manager report. Dennis, do you have anything you'd like to share?
There you go. Hello, Harlan. How you doing? Thank you. Right now I'm dealing with the courtyard and the pool situation. Also, members are asking to use the rooms. And we're not allowing the users to get cameras in them. Is that correct, Harlan?
We're going to talk about that at the end of the agenda, but in short,
Okay.
there are some security issues we need to address before we can allow open access to the rooms.
Okay, yeah, the one big room is the gym. So you might wanna, I was just actually gonna send you a chat, but we need to discuss that amongst the board. Everything else is water everywhere, found some broken pipes we didn't know about to drain the gutters and stuff, not the courtyard into the Bonita Springs thing. It's in our water drain. Guido's done a heck of a job replacing those 8-inch pipe. So today's a terrible day for him to be in the hole. So we're gonna, do another items today, but he's very busy around here. Just very busy.
All right. Well, thank you. And just to be clear to everybody, that's a stormwater drain that is kind of out outside of the building area, if you will. So it sounds like we've got a handle on it, but it was
Yeah, that water goes into the bed, not into Bonita Spring.
right. Stormwater.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the new business. So as you guys might expect or understand, hopefully, there are some things that require urgency to act on before board meetings. So there were a couple of contracts that we kind of gave a thumbs up to, if you will. And they were implemented or signed since the April board meeting. You might remember at the board meeting in April, we talked about gear replacement for the main distribution panels. At that point in time, we had only one proposal. And since then, Lassiter has given us a proposal. I want to send out my thanks to Roger Crom. My gosh, Roger has been phenomenal in helping us sort through all of the different issues relating to electrical. This is a big one. This is where those main distribution panels are in each one of our buildings, and they were damaged during the hurricane, Hurricane Ian. And we have temporary panels in there now. We got a temporary occupancy based upon the requirement that we replace those distribution panels with permanent gear. So that's what this is about. And that gear is being constructed, if you will. It should arrive potentially late August. Then we'll have to sort through that we have everything we need before we pull the trigger and begin replacing. And this is why you've seen the note go out that says, each building may be down for a week or so. We'll do one building at a time. And I guess, and of course, we've advised everyone to make sure that they've removed anything from their refrigerators, particularly because if the refrigerator is off for an entire week, you may end up with some issues related to the food and or damage to the refrigerator. So this motion was this contract, if you will, was for Lassiter to do that replacement work. Roger, if you're online, do you have any additional comments about this? The second motion or second contract that we approved with a thumbs up, if you will, is for the courtyard maintenance. So Landscape Florida is doing all of our courtyard plantings, trees, sod, etc. And so this is really for the annual maintenance of that in the future. And of course, having them maintain what they've installed will certainly help with a warranty. It's the same company doing both. So I guess what I'm asking for is an official motion to reaffirm these contracts. Adam?
Sure, I'll make a motion for the board to reaffirm the contracts that have been previously approved and implemented since the April board meeting. Do I have a second?
Steve Dalton, second.
And all those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brett Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Steuben, aye. The motion carries. Now we have a few motions here that we have not acted on, and these are pending approval and discussion today. The first is actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Adam make the motion first, and then we'll discuss it.
Sure, I'll make a motion for the board to approve PBS construction proposal for the site entrance gatehouse construction. The proposal is in the amount of $163,453. Do I have a second?
Steve Dalton, second.
Hey, Ron, are you on the phone?
Yes.
And I
Yes, I
want,
am, Harlan.
I want to thank Ron. He has been so, and you'll see this in a couple more of these proposals. Ron is another one of my superheroes. We wouldn't have been able to do what we've done without him. Now, Ron has done a lot of the background work here. And Ron, I'd like you to discuss why you think we should approve this proposal.
Well, basically, this whole thing has been brought up with our committee, along with Bart, who's our general contractor. Without him, he's been a great asset in understanding the city of what they need to provide and to perform with a lot of their restrictions. So he was instrumental in giving the bid, very detailed. So I recommended that we would go along with his bid for that reason.
And Ron, as I understand it, it's been really challenging getting anybody to bid on some of these projects, and this one in particular. I know you've talked to several different contractors.
Correct. Yeah, they've been, with all the work going on, this was very, because the city is part of this whole process that we have to follow their bylaws and so on. So it was very limited into getting contractors to work with. And I worked with about 3 other ones and they all backed out. You know, the good thing was I've been working with Bart for over a year and he's been instrumental in understanding the city bylaws and so on. So we felt very confident with the bid process and his knowledge in making this run smooth.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very, very much. Do I have any questions or comments from the board? Do I have any questions or comments from the owners?
Who was the second, Harlan?
Steve was the second.
Thank you.
Have any questions or comments from the owners? I would like to ask for a vote on this issue. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brett Hansen, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Steuben, aye. The motion carries. Let's go to the next motion. Adam, go ahead, please.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve a contract with Greg Ulrich Marine Construction for the construction and installation of the scour wall in front of buildings A and E in the amount of $83,962. Do I have a second?
Steve
Brett
Dalton,
Hansen,
second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. I heard Steve the loudest, so Steve seconds. Thank you. So Steve commented on this in his presentation, but in short, this is if you remember, one of the biggest damages that occurred to our buildings were the underneath A&E, and the washout that occurred caused the floor to drop, caused damage to the pylons that were there. That was a massive reconstruction effort. So Adam asked our engineer, what could we do that might reduce that probability? And they engineered the idea of a scour wall. And this is basically a metal wall that is that's 10 feet in front of the front wall of A and or E. So there's one in front of A, one in front of E, and it's 10 feet in front and it drops down 12 feet in depth. And it's not a straight wall. It has a little bit of a curvature on both ends. And the engineer has reaffirmed us that in their opinion, this is an excellent way of reducing the probability of a washout under A&E. Do I have any questions from the board? Do I have any questions from the ownership? I'd like to call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brett Hansen, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carl Stuven, aye. The motion carries. Adam, you're up next.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve shutter specialist proposal for manual crank hurricane doors. The amount of the proposal is $25,986. Do I have a second?
Steve Dalton, second.
So all of our doors and windows on the first floor are Miami-Dade certified. But the power, remember, Miami-Dade is really largely about wind and to a certain degree, to a smaller degree, about water. The power of the water in these has caused a lot of these doors in the previous from Hurricane Ian to kind of blow out, if you will. This is yet a secondary double protection, primarily against wind and the pressure of very high water. It is not going to prevent water from coming in, but it will reduce the power of that as it comes up against those doors. This is for the doors only in our common rooms and the office. Remember, our electrical rooms and our elevator rooms all have these submarine doors. We can't use submarine doors on these. This is really just a shutter, as many of you have, and it just goes down over those doors, not the windows, but just the doors. And rather than have them electrically, we manually will have them crank down. It's cheaper, and we don't have to depend upon the electricity potentially going out. Do you have any questions from the board? Do you have any questions from the ownership? I'd like to call for a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carl Stuven, aye. The motion carries. You know, Adam, when I asked people to make motions, I didn't know I was giving you so many, but please go ahead, make the next
worries.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve Airwork proposal for the product installation of the 24 wireless Red Link remote controls in the amount of $22,475. Do I have a second?
Steve Dalton, second.
So Airworks, many of you are aware of, but they did all of the installation of the air conditioners in the common rooms as a subcontractor for PBS. One of the things, and so that's why this is a proposal from Airwork, because this is kind of an extension, if you will, of what they have already done for us. One of the things we talked about, I don't know, maybe it was a year and a half ago or something like that, was having the ability to monitor our temperature, humidity remotely, and having the ability for the office to control that. It would amount to some energy savings as well, and potentially reduction in damage because of humidity to our various furniture, etc. So this is really putting that into place. Apparently it wasn't part of the original PBS proposal. Have any questions from the board?
Not a question, Harlan, but a comment on this. This is one of the ways we're going to start utilizing smart devices to protect our common areas. As we settle in, there's other things we can possibly monitor. If there's any water on the floor, if there's a drip, and so on. But the idea is that the amount of money we have expended in making these rooms beautiful, it makes sense to simply, have some kind of a feedback, on just real-time basis to make sure that they're protected.
Thanks, Adam. Any other comments from the board, please? Any comments from the ownership, please? If not, I'd like to ask for a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carl Stuven, aye. The motion carries. Brad, finally we get to you, buddy. You're up next.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve Tom Kelly Custom Builders proposal for the restoration of 126C in the amount of $174,500.
Steve Dalton, second.
So I'm going to let Brad speak to this largely, but I just want to say that this is it within what flood insurance paid us for this restoration. So I'm happy about that. And we did get 3 bids, but Brad, go ahead, give some background on this.
I think the biggest background is that many people have used Tom Kelly to restore their own personal units. In fact, I'm using Tom right now, and he's doing a great job. So I can assure you that his workmanship is very good. We did get 3 bids, and Tom was the least of the 3, substantially less. So thanks, Tom, for giving us a little bit of a discount. And believe that's it. I think that the other big thing was that there was some confusion whether we could get a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, and in dealing with the city, we're able to make that unit a 2-bedroom. It's actually technically a 1-bedroom and a den, but that's the same thing as most of the units in C. They're technically 2 bedrooms and a den. So that's where we're at.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for taking this on, by the way. And I also want to give credit here to Ron. Ron took a look at all 3 bids that were available on 126 and reviewed them and gave a recommendation as well. Thank you, Ron. Do I have any questions or comments from the board? Do I have any questions or comments from the ownership?
Yeah, Mark Mumble here, 716B. Does this bid include all refrigerators, stove? I know it probably doesn't include furniture, but I didn't know whether we had to add on to this one process.
Brad?
I don't believe it includes you. I don't believe it includes any appliances. There's probably an allowance amount in there. I think there is an allowance amount for appliances, but I don't have the contract in front of me.
Good question, Mark. And if you want, we can send the contract to you. I don't want to spend the time to review that at the moment, if you don't mind, but we'll certainly get that answer for you. Any other questions or comments from the ownership? I'd like to ask for a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Stewart, aye. Motion carries. Adam, you're up again.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve a contract with Blue Outdoor Solution LLC for a pool safety fence in the amount of $27,550 and simultaneously rescind the contract with Hands-Free for the same product. Do I have a second?
Brad Hanson, second.
So the background on this is that Hands-Free gave us a combined bid for the fence plus the electronic controls. But it turns out that the fence that they were proposing wasn't exactly what was requested by Kristen. And so it turns out it's going to be better for us to go with another company. And Hands-Free will continue, they'll continue to do the electronic controls, but the fence itself will be done by Blue Outdoor Solutions, who is also strongly recommended by Kristen, our landscape architect, who secured the bids in the first place. So any questions or comments from the ownership? I'm sorry, from the board first. Any questions or comments from the ownership? I'd like to call for a motion to approve this. I'm sorry, not a motion. I'd like to call for a vote to approve this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Stewart, aye. The motion carries. Steve, you're up next.
Harlan, I'd like to make a motion to approve the BBC Community PWC bike program. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so let me give you just a little bit of background on this. And first of all, private bike and personal watercraft storage has been really limited and resulting in no access for some owners and long waiting lists, which has kind of been unfair, but there hasn't been a really good solution. Many owner many owner bikes and PWCs are rarely used and poorly maintained. So we're going to probably have to increase our bike and PW storage charges, and they will need to be increased periodically. They haven't been increased for quite some time, but the cost of maintaining our storage rooms warrants an increase in the annual fees for storage. So thanks, Anne Marie reached out with a survey and it showed that 60+ units were interested in a community bike and or PWC program. This program would be an opt-in only and user funded only, so it would not affect the budget of the BBC. And it's designed to serve the need that I mentioned previously. So our plan would be to reach out again to those units, get a financial commitment, and reach out to the PWC owners to explore their interest in offering their kayak in exchange for a program credit. And I've included in the send out more detailed information. I want to also give a thanks to Chris, who put together the summary chart and has helped me problem solve and discuss how this might occur. We don't have all the answers, but before it goes into place, we will. I know there probably will be some questions, so I'd like to ask the board first. You have any questions or comments about this program, and particularly your support of it and reasons why?
Harlan, this is Adam. I have received great feedback from the owners. A lot of people have the same frustration. They're not going to get on the, anytime. They're not going to get a spot anytime soon, and they're not competitive about biking or anything else. They just wanted to go out and occasionally take the family out and go biking. So I have received nothing but praise for this. I'm also a fan of this because a lot of people bought in earlier on. I bought in 2019. The odds of me ever having a bicycle over there is none. So to me, this is probably a great way of making sure that everybody has access to this. And since it's an opt-in solution, we don't have to really, be concerned about, well, I don't use a bike. Why am I paying for this? So I think the program, the way it's structured, is right on, and I'm excited to see it in work.
Thank you, Adam. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the ownership?
Yeah, hi, Harlan, Lori Sauter,
Yes,
462E. I just have just one question. I'm just trying to follow this. I really don't get involved with bikes or anything like that.
sure.
But for this program, is there going to be an outlay of money to buy bikes and then let people rent them and use them? Or where are these bikes coming from? That's just what I wanted to know.
Yeah, for sure. No, I don't think we want to have an outlay until we know for sure that people are interested. So the sheet that I sent out kind of lays out some of that, but in sum, what we're going to do is we'll reach out to those 60+ units who are interested and ask for a financial commitment to them before we buy anything. So the number of bikes we buy will be based upon a ratio that is used in other types of programs like this. So the BBC will not incur any out-of-pocket costs to get it running.
Okay, so it won't be a cost to any of the other units that have no intention of using these. It'll be to you said 60 some odd units that were interested, because I know the cost of bikes now is crazy. And
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Right.
thank
Lori,
you.
and you're welcome. And I wouldn't want to have a program that would cost you money if you're not using it. So
No.
that's the goal of this. Any other
Thanks.
questions or comments from the ownership? I'd like to ask for a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brett Hansen, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Stewart, aye. The motion carries. Adam, you're up next. Wow.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion for the board to submit to owners a survey to revisit a vote on the pool house location. Do I have a second?
Brad, second.
So there's been continual concern from the owners about the location. We were criticized for asking the owners to choose a location before they knew what the building would look like and whether it'd be a 1 or 2 story. And I guess I'll take some credit for that. I wish I had a textbook or a primer in which we would know how to do these kinds of things. But now that we do know that it's a 2-story, and given the number of people who are concerned about it, seems only logical and fair that we offer the owners an opportunity to again give us their opinion based on the 2 optimal locations that have been discussed previously. So the survey will be used to guide us whether to have yet another material alteration. It won't be the definitive. The survey will be the guide for us to help us decide whether to have a material alteration on the location. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the ownership? If not, I'd like to have a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hansen, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Stewart, aye. The motion carries. I'm going to wait on this motion. I want to give you a little bit of background. I want to add to what Steve has said about the need for an assessment. We do have money in our bank account right now, and I'm really happy about that. It's not a cash flow issue. But when we look at the number of projects that we have here that we didn't entirely expect, it's clear to me that there's going to be a need for an assessment. So I want to walk you through the background by this. If we go back to what was approved on the infrastructure, concrete repair, waterproofing, painting of the buildings, refinishing the breezeways and the walkway floors, the reserve budget estimate, you can go back and look at it. The reserve budget estimate was $1,360,900. But after we finally got custom painting and construction to start looking at these numbers, looking at what needed to be done, it ended up that our contract right now is $2,068,987. Now we were planning on a $700,000 special assessment pre-hurricane to cover this major construction issue, major reserve issue, if you will. So our estimated shortfall for this piece alone is over $700,000. And what we found when they've started to do their work is that there are things that they're uncovering, which may actually be more. But we're at least, based upon the reserve budget estimate, we're at least $700,000 short on that projection. And remember, we're not the ones that did the reserve study. That was done by experts. Then we had the pool plaster and pool mechanicals. These were planned for in the future. The reserve study estimate was $36,000 for the pool plaster and $7,500 for pool mechanicals. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't come out to that. The finishing by Bakers for the pool plastering on the interior is $196,888. Now that includes, and remember, that was approved way back when, but that includes new railings, new lights. So it goes beyond pool plastering. Yet, if you were going to do pool plastering, you certainly would want to do a lot of the things that Baker is doing for us, some of the water line tile, etc. So what I'm saying is the reserve study was way out of line, and we're the Symbiont heaters alone were $67,234. So our estimated shortfall from what the reserve study would suggest is $220,000. Then we had pool furniture replacement. The reserve study for 2022 was an estimate of $7,000, not our number, the reserve study number. But Mark Mumley, thank you for doing some research on this. And for the same quality or slightly better or better quality than what we had before, we could be looking at somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. So another estimated shortfall of $30,000 just to cover the reserve shortfall. So a big part of what we're talking about here in an assessment has to do with covering what was a, let's say, inadequate number from the reserve study. Then we have hurricane protection. Now, we've got J.R. Evans Engineering, the seawall, and together those two items are probably close to $275,000. We still haven't really determined how we're going to do beach access over that wall. There's going to be some add-on money there. Fortunately, we have an opportunity to apply for a grant and get potentially 50% of that up to 150,000. So when we add in the seawall, the engineering, the beach access, and doing something on the front face of that seawall to make it look presentable, I mean, we're probably close to $300,000 there, but we can get 150 back from this grant, hopefully. The submarine doors for the electrical and elevator rooms were 181,420, and then we had installation costs of nearly 50,000. The scour wall that we just approved, about 84,000, and the hurricane door for the shutter rooms, hurricane door shutters for the common rooms, about 26,000. So there's an estimated shortfall of 625,000. If the grant comes through, maybe it's only 475,000. So what I'm trying to tell you, if you sum it all up, is just to get us past some of the things that we were planning to do as part of the reserve, and we're in the reserves, as well as this hurricane protection issues we're talking about, we're at about 1.5 million. And I want to remind you that if you go back to 2022, I think, we had approved a $1.5 million assessment at that point in time, but we never put it into place because we're hit with a hurricane. We weren't sure what we were going to have to fix. So that's kind of the background behind all that. You know, I'd be happy to debate it with somebody offline. I don't want to go into the numbers in great detail, but that's a reason why I think we need to submit a request for an assessment to the owners of 1.5 million to cover 2024 reserve budget shortfalls, hurricane building and property protection. Now that we can't, at least the norm has been that we share our thoughts with the board, with the community, and then we come back after they've had a chance to think about it, ask questions, etc. So today isn't a motion to do the assessment. It's a motion to submit to the owners a request. So Steve, are you okay with that?
Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And this is a good opportunity. People can ask, you know, we've got year end coming up. And so, you know, we can open it up when people have questions. Let's find out and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
So would you make a motion to this effect then, please?
Sure. Harlan, I'd like to make a motion to submit to owners a request for an assessment of 1.5 million to cover 2024 reserve budget shortfalls and hurricane building and property protection. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Does the board have any questions or comments about this?
I went on at length here, Harlan, before, but I just think it's really important for people to understand that, you know, a portion of what we got, you know, from the insurance company did go towards some of that infrastructure cost, but basically everything from 2 all the way to 7 was clearly not covered. So, you know, all those things like complete repair of the tennis courts, anything that we do inside the courtyard, those are not covered by insurance costs or adequately covered by insurance costs. So this is a necessary evil. Now, there's one thing I didn't touch on before, and that is we're very hopeful that we're going to get good news. It's probably going to take 6 months as a result of our attorneys and our public adjusters really getting some sort of a substantial number from wind. But we have costs to cover now, and we can't wait for that 6 months, 9 months, however long it takes to settle that out. We need to move on that now. So any questions?
Any further questions from the ownership, please?
Yeah, Harlan?
Yes.
Harlan?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes.
Hey, it's Karen Slaughter, Unit
Yes.
432. I have a question. You know, we discussed briefly the hurricane seawall as opposed to the scour wall at the last board meeting. And I remember you mentioning we would get up to half back. I think it was 150,000. You know, when we did the 80-foot wall that we have now, that the short wall that's in front of E-Building, the cost for that was over $100,000. And if maybe I misheard it, but I'm hearing what I thought I heard from you was that the cost for the additional 600 feet, which is going to be higher, and adding to the top of that short wall that we have now, which I believe is 18 inches high, was going to be 300,000. Is that our cost after getting the money back? I mean, what's the firm estimate we have from whoever's doing that work? Total.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. It's a lot. There are a lot of numbers here, and I appreciate sometimes it can be a bit confusing. We did sign a contract with Greg Orick Marine Construction approve, I should say. I believe it was at the last board meeting for $225,364, and that does the 42-inch wall for 588 feet, and it goes and it ties into the short wall that you are referring to. And now it does not include yet beach access. We haven't really decided on. So yeah, I can tell you we had Ron did this background work, and we had Ron, are you there? Can you comment on the proposals you got, and just in retrospect why we chose Greg Orick? No, Ron's not on. Yeah, or doesn't want to talk about it. Anyway, off
Here.
the top of my head,
I'm
I know that we had proposals. One was as high as 400,000. So this was substantially lower. And but yet it's a company that's been doing this kind of work for a number of years and is well represented and are well supported by recommendations. So that's where it's at. And if we get a grant, it's 50% of what we spend. So we think that when you consider the seawall, the surface covering of that seawall to make it look nice from the BBC side, and the beach access will probably be in excess of 300, which means we'll probably get the 150 grant, which means it will probably end up costing us 150,000, which is phenomenal, really. Any other questions?
Okay. I have one last question about the construction of that. How deep is that wall going to go
Well, it's
into the ground?
I can't. I'm not an engineer, so I can't. We can share with you the engineering plan if you'd like. My kind of superficial understanding is that they rebar into the existing wall that's there, which is, I think, 7 or 8 inches high. So it doesn't go into the ground; it goes on top of what's already there. But if you
No,
want to,
but I meant like the part that's, wait a minute, Matt, I Are you talking about the curb wall, like next to the walkway?
Yeah, the one that's on the west side of the sidewalk.
Okay, I guess my other question then, if you're only just doing rebar and do a 7-inch deep thing, and you've got a big tidal surge coming in, is that gonna be enough
Karen,
to
that's why,
hold that wall up?
Karen, I'm not an engineer and I'm not prepared to answer your question, but that's why we hired J.R. Evans Engineering to design it. So they
Okay.
they not only designed the wall, but they submitted the wall to the various agencies, the Department of Environmental Protection, et cetera, for their approval. So we have experts that have far more knowledge than either you or I, who have designed this thing. So we're relying on their expertise. Are there any other questions or comments from the ownership? Okay. So I guess I'm kind of lost my train of thought here, but I did did we I think we need to have a vote on this motion. So all those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carlin Steuben, aye. The motion carries. So I have only one major issue here that I want to discuss with you, and that under the discussion part. So this is a little bit more of a background, and I want owner input into this. But as you all know, we've spent a fair amount of money redeveloping our common rooms, and they'll all have brand new furniture and furnishings. As you also know, we've had damages in the past, and oftentimes from renters. What many of you who rent out your units collect a damage deposit for any damages that occur within your unit. But we as a BBC have never collected any sort of damage deposit or from renters or leasees for damages that occur to our community property. And Adam and I've had a conversation. We've investigated this legally. We're within our rights to collect a damage deposit. Now that amount can be, as I understand it, up to the equivalent of a month's rent. Well, that'd be a whole hell of a lot of money. I think that would be unfair. But I do think we ought to institute some sort of a renter damage deposit. I'm going to ask Adam to comment on that in a minute, as well as a couple other things that he's also intimately involved in. But the second part of it is we've spent a fair amount of money this time around putting in digital locks, or preparing for digital locks for our common rooms, facilities, and our future gate. This will allow us to assign a unique permanent code to our owners, but a temporary code to the renters that will expire at the end of their time that they're here. That then allows us then to monitor who has access, who's going in and out of a room, so that if we have damages, we will be able to narrow down who's been into that room during that period of time. And lastly, you might remember we talked about security cameras. So in the renovation, we put in the wiring needed for security cameras in the common rooms. And this will allow us, between the facility codes and the security cameras, it will allow us to narrow down if there is damage that's reported. It will allow us to narrow it down. You can do a lot of stuff, and I'm sure Lori Sauter, you were in the law enforcement agency. I don't know your exact role, but there's only so much you can do. But I think this is all reasonable stuff that we've put in place, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. I also wanted to get any comments, constructive constructive ideas and compliments on this, please, because I wanted you all to know where we're headed to try to protect our property and the security thereof. Adam, do you want to add anything to what I said?
No, well put. We do have that option to collect a security deposit. We haven't really thought about what's a fair amount. But all of this, and I think we had a committee even before the hurricane, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kathy Nisi did a lot of footwork with the local sheriff department and kind of went over what we can do for security and safety, or security specifically. So we have options, and at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to basic accountability. If you're here, you should respect the grounds that you're on. The owners do this automatically. Guests are a little bit different category, because presumably your friends and family will respect your common grounds too. The tenants, on the other hand, some tenants might have the mentality of, oh, I paid for this month, so I don't really care. And that's kind of the balancing act of how to balance the privacy and accountability. And we can certainly do that with a little bit of modern electronics to keep everybody honest.
Thanks, Adam. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, Harlan, it's Brad. I thought that it might not be necessary because the owners are responsible for their guests or renters. And if we can prove that their guests or renters are doing the damage, the owner is ultimately responsible. And whether they collect a damage deposit large enough to offset any damage that their renters or guests do, that's up to them. So I don't know why we're even going down this path.
Adam, do you have a comment on that?
Sure, but this is basic accountability. If we have to chase the owners down, the owners will chase the renters down, and that turns into a conversation. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. And it's obviously a battle, of who's going to point the finger which direction and how long it's going to take. When you have a renter that comes in and you tell the renter, say, look, you pay for the unit, but you're making a deposit in the common grounds. And there's a form for this, and basic accountability. The idea is that if a renter comes in, what's going to happen is the renter is going to say, well, I certainly don't want to take any chances and damage this, because at that point I already have X amount of dollars locked up, and I'd like to get that back. I saw a note in the comment, and the question was about family members coming in and vandalizing. The challenge with the deposit is that we are limited to collect a deposit up to 1 month's worth of rent. If your family comes in or your guest comes in and they don't pay anything because they've been invited, that amount is zero, which means we cannot collect a security deposit at all. And what Brad is saying, it is true. If your family member comes in and destroys something, at the end of the day, we can and will assess a unit for that damage, because whether it's the owner or family or friends, you're responsible for that invitee when they come in. The idea of a security deposit really goes for tenants, because there's probably a pattern more of tenants being a little bit more, I would say, disregarding of our common elements than perhaps your family. But we just don't have that option of collecting money from guests or family members.
Thanks, Adam.
I have a thought here, and it's really more from an accounting standpoint. So, Dennis and Chris are hopping. So this adds another step onto the process. I agree with Brad, and that is that if everybody knows, and we can codify this in an additional rule or add it to the bylaws, and I suspect it already is, but at the end of the day, if I have a renter there and they do damage, I know that I'm on the hook, because at the end of the day, I'm the property owner. So rather than have to get a check from an owner, from a renter, and then have to make sure that we're responsible for reimbursing them back to who knows where, back to their home address and everything else, it's already big enough hassle to bring them in, get a sticker, that puts burden on the front office. I'm inclined to say we just make sure that everybody understands owners are on the hook for this, instead of adding one more complexity of money having to go from the renter and then back to the renter for every single time we've got somebody in there, which adds time for Dennis and Chris. That's going to be additional cost for Davis because we're going to have checks cut. We can't cut checks. I just as soon say, hey, you're on the hook. If you have a renter that does damage, you're going to have to pay for it. You go collect, and that's on you.
Yeah, Steve,
Steve, can I make a comment, Steve, please? It's easier for us to, when you come and get a sticker, to scan their card and be done with it. When they leave, we just scan, send that back to the cup, say return, or we'll find a way. We're working on the right company to get. This will be no extra time. I don't want to be a naysayer, but this is not something that Harlan pulling out of the back of his, surgery bag. He's actually thought about and has done a good job of directing us how he wants to. So the first two companies did not work for us. I'm going to investigate some hotels. When you go to a hotel, you put down a deposit, and then when you leave, you get deposit back. Yeah, some, like La Quintas take longer than Hilton, but we're going to be the Marriott of this, not the La Quinta. So before we do anything, we get all of our say no to anything. Can we just say that you guys will vote on the possibility of the charging until the board gets all its information? Sorry, Harlan, I didn't mean to say anything I shouldn't.
No. You should always say what you feel, what you believe and feel. And I know one thought that pops into my head, and the reason I have this under discussion is because I don't have all the answers. So I'm trying to figure out and I wanted to brainstorm. But I'm just wondering how, Steve, you raised a concern. What do you do with your damage deposits? You just collect a check and hold it and then give it back to them at the end of the rental period? You're on mute. You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, I don't collect a deposit. I only rent to a couple of people, and it's, tens of thousands of dollars. They're here. I know they're good for it. I've got a contract. They're repeat renters. I don't have anybody that's a revolving door. So it's built very clearly into my contract. If they incur damage and we have evidence of that, either in my unit or outside, they're on the hook for it. It's never been a problem. That's just policy.
Hi, Steve. I used to rent my unit out 536 when we lived there. I don't 732 anymore, but 536, I used to rent it out, and I collected a separate check for damage deposit. And at the end of the time period, I simply ripped it up or sent it back. It reminds me that maybe we should ask the people who do rent. Steve Lalka, you're on I see you there, you rent. How do you manage the damage deposit?
Well, we said collect a check and we send it back to them or tear it up. One question I have with this is, if you're going to be talking about the common rooms, I know immediately if there should be a problem in the my place when the place is cleaned. Usually you can tell pretty immediately. Are we going to be able to tell that there's some damage done in these common rooms or to our property? Who's going to do the inspecting? Who's going to report that back? I mean,
yeah, sometimes
it's a lot. I can see delays. Renters don't like delays in return of the security deposit.
Yeah, here this isn't foolproof, but if someone walks into a room, an owner walks into the fitness room, and they see there's been significant damage to a piece of equipment, and that's immediately reported to the office. And we can probably go back a day or two on the cameras and the facility code door codes, and we'll be able to find out who was in that room. It's not foolproof, but I think more than anything else, having the ability, knowing that people are being, let's say they're at some level of responsibility, just knowing about it, I think changes an attitude. It makes you as a renter or a user less likely to feel like you're going to get away with something. But so you rip
Harlan?
up, yeah,
Carlin, can I just make a point? If
Yeah.
something's working on a workout machine and it breaks,
Mhm.
they're not necessarily going to go running to the office and say, "Hey, that broke." Nor will that machine be used. We have slow seasons, right? I just think the immediacy of understanding if there's a problem is much more apparent on the inside our units than it is on the common elements around the property.
Yeah, it's a challenge. There's no doubt
So
about
I don't know. Are we going to have inspections?
I don't have the answer, Steve. Maybe you want to help me work on it. I'd be
Yeah.
happy to have your offline advice
Sure.
on how to
Okay.
work.
I
know
want
have
to make a comment. I rent my condo, and I have for the last 30 years. A couple of things. One, we do get the deposit. We have people that come back year after year. A lot of times we keep the deposit for 5 years because they keep coming back. The people we're renting to at our facility are high quality people. They're paying a lot of money to stay there. They respect our condo. We've never had an issue. And I am kind of upset that we're just inferring that all the renters are causing the damage. I don't think that's a true fact. I think there's a lot of family members. I think there's maybe people that come off the beach. I think there could be some owners that cause damage on purpose or not on purpose. But just go down this road that we're going to collect a double deposit from renters because they're so evil. I really don't think renters are an evil force to our facility. And a lot of us really need renters now. We are under the gun financially, and I don't think it's time to attack the renter population because we need a lot of money to move forward to make our place right. So I am a little angry about how everyone thinks renters are so bad because they're not. They're usually about 70 years old.
I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
This is Ann McAdam, D220.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Ann. First of all, we're not attacking renters, but the experience, if you go back in time, has been that there are when we do know when damages have occurred, it's more often from renters, it's more often from weekly renters or short-term renters, and it's not from the 70-year-olds. And we can't, as Adam pointed out, can't collect a damage deposit from family members or friends that are visiting. That's because there's I don't know the uniqueness of the law, but that's the way it is. So it isn't.
Harlan.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's Brad. Is it possible that we put small signs, and we don't want to make a billboard of it, but small signs in these rooms that say, please be respectful. You are being videotaped, and your owners will be responsible for any damage that occurs.
Sure.
And just leave it at that.
Well, we can certainly do that, Brad. I have a picture of two young people who put a hammock and tied it in between two of our palm trees, and on one of the right side beside it is a do not trespass. You're under video surveillance. Signs, and we have signs out front at the gate that say, this is under construction, enter at your own risk or whatever. And yet we get multiple people driving in, dropping off their canoes. I even saw somebody launch their jet ski. So a sign, yeah, okay. Sorry, don't agree with you on that one. But I do have a question here that somebody asked, and that is about video versus audio. And I don't think our intention is to capture anybody's conversations. It's just to see if there's any potential that would be done, damage that could be done. And I also have a comment that was made by somebody says if the manager or staff walks through the common rooms daily. And that's an excellent point because as part of our normal cleaning process, and what we've put together is that we will have a staff member walking through and checking for any, you know, debris or cleanup or whatever that needs to be done in a common room. So that, I guess, helps with kind of the timeline. Well, listen, I mean, this isn't definitive. It's not a motion. It's not meant to, you know, cut off anybody's rental options. We're trying to protect what we have as a community. If you have further comments, put them in an email. We're trying to figure out how to make this work. You know, I know you guys, you know, protect your own units when you rent out. You expect, you know, but the right kind of attitude. But unfortunately, we have damages that have occurred. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this a little bit more so we can monitor it a little bit more. So thanks everybody for your comments. Please send additional comments by email to the board and let us have a chance to talk it through more. We've been on the phone here for an hour and a half on the Zoom. We're done with our issues as a board. Are there any specific issues that unit owners feel like they want to bring up at this moment in time?
Yeah, this is Mark Mumley. I just wanted to clarify that it was Candy Peg who helped with the pool furniture quotes.
Oh, thank you, Mark. And thanks, Candy.
I also want to hope most of the people read my statement on Friday in the weekly report and understand why we are delaying the finishing of the pool. And I promise we'll be swimming sometime this fall, but due to a lot of other projects going on around the pool, we, not just myself, we, the board, the people involved with the construction of that area, have decided to delay the finishing of the pool. The interior, not anything else, but just the interior.
Thanks, Mark. Any other issues from the unit owners?
Harlan,
Yes.
this is Teresa Versier from D550. I
Yes.
just have a concern with the suggestions of when we have this power outages. Is this going to happen during the summer? And are we concerned about the time that it's going to take place and if the units will become subject to mold if it's off for a week?
Yes, and you were a bit muffled, but I think I got the gist of it. The soonest that it would occur would be late August. And we sure hope that our best estimates from the experts who do this kind of thing is that we're looking at about a week per building. And it's my understanding that we're going to start on the C building because it's more complex and they will learn how to deal with that. I didn't have anything to do with that decision. But so what we will do is we'll give all owners notice at least a week prior. And Dennis, you got to keep me honest on that one, okay? But we need to keep all owners aware that for that week, at least that week, that the electricity will be off. And then we'll move on to the next unit or next building.
I will, as soon as I get some kind of timeline, it'll be in every email from that day forward.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, hi, Harlan, Lori Sauter again. Just a quick question. When they are getting to each building to do the electric switch over, do they have to go into every unit to do anything, or is this all going to be done from the exterior?
It will all be done in the main electrical rooms that are on the first floor that we've talked about before. There's one main electric room for each building. And they do have to coordinate it with the Florida Power and Light because that green box that's out there has the transformer in it. So when they shut it down, Florida Power and Light has to do that. And then Florida Power and Light has to turn it back on. But in the meantime, they're doing the work of taking out these if you think of them, they're kind of like big, it's called gear, but they're kind of like big, fuse boxes, if you will. So they got to take all those fuse boxes out. Then they have to install the new ones. Then they have to hook it up to the transformer again. Now we've had some conversation and we're a bit off. I mean, the decision hasn't been made yet on how we're going to do this, but I would like to somehow confirm that your personal electrical is back on. That would require someone to go into your unit and make sure that your air conditioner is turned back on, which is the main thing that we would be concerned about, because there's no reason why it wouldn't, but it could. And I don't want your unit to be sitting there for a while with your air conditioner off. So we've talked about having somebody come in and confirm that you're, after they've done their work on the first floor, to confirm that your electricity's come back on. But again, that's just in the thought stage. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right.
Harlan, this is Beth Naylor, 310A and 222B. Quick question is, how do we know if we're slated to get our cage replaced and or the screen door? Like 310A, we've been without a door, which is okay, but it's really unclear to us who's on that list for door and cage replacement and who is not.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that none of the interior cages would be replaced because most of the concrete construction work is being done on the end units, if you will, where the cage goes all the way out to the end of the lanai or the walkway, if you know what I mean. So I don't remember 310, your units, if they're interior units, so to speak, then it's highly unlikely that your cage would be replaced.
One's an end and one's interior, but then
Yeah,
doors
well,
are missing as well.
Yeah, so probably what we found in the C building is almost every one of those cages needed to be replaced. And the reason they needed to be replaced is because there was problems with the concrete underneath the cage. So they had to remove the cage in order to do the repair work on the concrete. So that's the cage issue. I'm sorry, your second question.
Was the screen doors as well.
Screen doors. So that's very interesting because Candy Peg, if she's on the phone, my kudos to her again for this. Candy reached out to multiple companies about just installing screen doors. And we ended up with only one company who was willing to do that. Then the next issue becomes, do we offer a standard door? Do we offer more than one option? And I guess we got into a stumbling block on that one. Beth, if you want to help with that, there are so many things going on. It seemed to be a lower priority. I know it may be higher to you, but it's lower on my list of 80 some projects that are going on. So what we have at the moment is we do have a contractor who has given us a bid, but the questions still remain, should we just offer one type of screen door? Should we offer more than one? And what would be the price difference? And then how do we monitor that? How do we go out and ask each individual owner if they want to do it themselves versus us coordinating it for you, et cetera, et cetera. All those mechanics are part of the problem.
Okay, it would be extremely helpful. I understand that that's low priority, but for an owner to know whether their cage or their door is going to be replaced, like the RN unit is marked with black paint, so I'm assuming it's going to be replaced. But when we're trying to time the work that we are doing on our individual units with work that's going to be doing on the exterior of the unit, it's just good to know so that we can put things in the right order.
Well, the engineering report that was done by Socotec has been published, and you should be able to get a copy of that to know whether or not Socotec originally thought that your cage needed to be replaced. But I want to caution you because until they start actually working on the end unit lanai, they don't know. And so it's not really quality information on that. Sorry, that's all I can tell you.
Can I just clarify about 222B, it, the lanai facing the courtyard, the cage, has literally been sprayed with like black paint. Like we cannot get that off. I assume that that was the original engineers going through and marking possibly, because otherwise the cage has been damaged.
Excuse me, Harlan, I've got to step out, and, you know, these are starting to be individual concerns.
Yeah, okay, okay.
So I'm gonna have to leave.
Yeah, okay, let's call for a motion for adjournment. And then anybody who has any other outstanding issues, if you wouldn't mind sending them by email, and we can get them to the right person to answer your question. I'd like to have a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
the meeting.
You're all anxious, huh?
I'll
Okay.
second. That's fine.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Carolyn Steuben, aye. The meeting is adjourned. And again, I don't want to cut anybody off. If you have individual issues, please send a note to the board in general, and we'll make sure that we get somebody to answer you. Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. Hope you have a great day. Be safe. Be healthy, I guess. All right.